Alright guys, welcome back. This is going to be episode 3 of this video series. Alec Hickox from ZC Rubber. We're going to be covering MTL tracks this time around. So when we say MTL, we mean multi-terrain loaders. Think the ASVs, Terex, stuff like that. And as you probably have noticed, it's kind of a different animal. We're not using drive sprockets to turn the track. We're using those squirrel cage with all the rollers and all that fun stuff. And I mean, right off the bat, why MTL tracks are using airman cording and no steel links and no cable, steel cable, sorry.
Right.
Why?
Well, the main thing was the weight.
Okay.
These, you have to remember, the ASV was the first loader, rubber track loader. And it was mainly made for golf course use. It was called an all-seasons vehicle. That's what ASV stands for. So you think of something kind of along the lines of snowmobiles, you're thinking along those lines. When you have, say, a Cat 257 series rubber track machine, would go right along the style of a Bobcat T190, which is a metal embed, steel cable tracks. You compare those two tracks, the ASV track or the 257 series track weighs less than half of what the T190 track weighs. So it was all about ground pressure. It was all about how much they were putting per square inch on the ground. And their goal was to keep that thing as lightweight as possible, which is why the roller system on that machine is also not steel. It's all the rollers are very, very lightweight. It's all about low ground pressure.
Gotcha. Outside of that, you've been telling me that no MTL track is exactly the same compared to a CTL track. When you say that, how do you mean that, and what's the reasoning behind it?
So when we make a normal CTL track, like a Bobcat T190, again, we'll just keep using that as the example. The pitch measurement, which is center of one link to the center of the next link, in the mold is 86 millimeters. And when that track is finished, it's 86 millimeters. And it's set up to work with that drive sprocket that is set at 86 millimeter pitch. On the ASV style, MTL style tracks, the pitch measurement is 101.6 millimeters, which happens to be 4 inches. But because of the type of construction that this track goes through and because of the drive wheel hub that it operates with, the pitch measurement doesn't stay exactly the same. So I've always said MTL tracks are kind of like human fingerprints. No fingerprints are the same. And the pitch measurement on an MTL track, when it's finished, is not 101.6. We try to make that average pitch measurement land between 99.8 and 100.3 millimeters. As long as we're in that range, it's going to operate perfectly on the squirrel cage, which is basically the drive wheel for this track. If you're less than that, it's going to be too tight. It's not going to go on. If you're longer than the 100.3, it's not going to tension up properly on the machine, and you're going to have a derail situation. Okay. So it's the nature of how that track is made and how it acts when it comes out of the mold, because it continues to cure for another 4 to 6 hours. So we have to control that track's temperature to make sure that the average pitch measurement falls in that window.
Got it. We also get a lot of questions about some guys like to switch to the aftermarket aluminum idlers, but they get concerned that maybe that could be hard on the track. Is there any...
It's a valid concern, but I can sort of assuage their fears on that. The reason they're using aluminum, first of all, aluminum is soft, and believe it or not, it's actually going to take the abuse. Meaning if a rock gets in there, it's soft enough that it will indent, so to speak. I like to stick with the rubber. Because I like the rubber on rubber contact, and I do feel like the aluminum can lend itself to possibly damage the track. But even the OEMs using it, they're using those on certain machines, and I believe they're using it on the larger machines, and I believe they're using it because they actually hold up better. in the long run than the polyplastic rubber are holding on the ends. So that may be the reason why the OEM went to that. Aftermarket started using it because it was easier to make.
Sure.
That's really what it boiled down to.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Outside of that, would you consider track tensioning on an MTL machine different than a CTL? Any little differences? Or
That's one that, yes, I would follow more what the OEM tells you to do on that particular setup, because it's just a different setup with the undercarriage, and it's a much more flexible track. So it does take, in my opinion, a little more tension for that track to operate the way it's supposed to. And if I remember correctly, they're normally a straight edge across the top of the track, showing a certain amount of sag on it, whereas a CTL would be raise the machine up and see what kind of sag you have at the bottom, which they typically want like 3/4 of an inch. So on an MTL, I definitely follow the OEM recommendations on tension.
Okay.
That's not a track that does better when it's real loose, because that squirrel cage that drives the track can pop over the guide lugs. So we have to keep a little more tension on that track.
Gotcha. And then the other only real common question we get asked quite often is, some people really seem to think these tracks are made to stretch for whatever reason. They put them on and they expect them to stretch out right away, and then you retension them. Is there any truth to that?
There's that can be a little bit of a misnomer. I've heard other companies in the past talk about going way back where, they would say, yeah, there's going to be some stretch to this track. That stretch is going to be so minimal, it should not be noticeable.
Okay.
So if you're getting so much stretch in the track that you're having to retension, I'll be honest with you, I think you got another issue going on, and you may have an elongation issue going on that could be a warrantable defect in the track. So if you're constantly having to tension up a track, you got another issue going on.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, I'm all out of questions for now, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to write in, and I'll do the best to help you out. But don't forget to like the video, sign up for notifications, and stop by for the next video in the series. See you later.